Hi, it's Monday, April 28th, and you're tuned in to Why America with Leeja Miller. I'm Leeja Miller. Let's get started. Today's another sandwich day. Bad news, sandwiched between two delicious doughy pieces of good-ish news. Good enough news. In the good news, budget talks are set to begin this week in Congress as members return from their spring recess, which provides yet another opportunity for Democrats to do, I don't know, anything to stall Republican initiatives. After the arrest of a judge last week, the Trump administration has made it clear that it has no plans to accept the rule of law from judges. We've known this for a while, but at 100 days in, it is abundantly clear that things are not business as usual, and therefore it is imperative that Democrats, as the opposition party to a literal authoritarian regime, step up and refuse to conduct business as usual in Congress. It's time to object to every single motion. It's time to force quorum checks over and over and over again. It's time for Democrats to dig in their heels. It's time to also call your representatives and urge them to do so as well. This is the good news section because it does offer an opportunity for Democrats. Budget talks will begin in earnest today in various committee meetings, requiring Republicans to get specific on their promises to cut trillions from the budget and from taxes, while also increasing spending on defense and border security. Because the math isn't mathing, it's been pointed out that the only way Republicans could possibly follow through on their promises is through cuts to Medicaid and Social Security, which would enrage their base. This is also in the good news section because yesterday, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker and House Minority Leader 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗄𝗧 Jeffries staged a day-long sit-in on the Capitol steps in order to push against the Republican budget plan and hold a conversation about what Republicans are doing wrong. Senator Chuck Schumer has indicated the Senate Democrats plan to hold the floor into the night on Tuesday to mark Trump's 100th day in office. Okay? But listen, I'm highlighting this as good news because at least it's something. After the positive response to Cory Booker's 25-hour filibuster, it's clear people want to see this type of action that is very visible, symbolic, but also something that will gunk up the system and slow things down. But also, as I was reading the New York Times article outlining the upcoming budget fight and Democrats' statements about it, I was getting pretty annoyed. For example, they quoted Democratic Senator Brian Schatz saying, quote, "The fundamental shift that is happening and that Cory embodied is that we need to be a little less particular about what tactic to use to fight what's going on. The truth is, we are in a fight, and we just need to start swinging." Start swinging? Is this just occurring to them? We've been out here begging for literally 100 days to do anything, to stop being so particular with what the correct tactic is and just start doing something to slow the process down. Trump is throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, to see what he can get away with. Democrats need to start trying anything and everything within what I understand is their limited power, but power nonetheless, to do anything at all. And so while I think some are getting the hint, Cory Booker being among them, there needs to be more. Over and over in this article, they quoted Democrats, especially Chuck Schumer, who needs to pack his bags and get the out of there. He is so incompetent. He just says some version of, we need to tell the American people how bad Trump is, and then they'll be happy with us and they'll vote for us. In this New York Times article, they quote him saying, first, quote, "As Republicans flesh out the details of their massive tax giveaway for billionaires, people will not have to wait to learn what's on the chopping block. Democrats are going to make sure everyone knows every detail of who is really on the losing end of Donald Trump's deal." Then they quote him saying, "Trump screws up in so many ways. We have to find every way he screws up and pound away at him and not just do it for a day. We gotta keep doing it. First, gross. Second, no you don't. No, you don't. This is not a winning strategy. Please leave DC and never come back. We know he's bad. The people who voted for him know he's bad, and they did it anyway. No one who voted for him would have been swayed if you stopped them in November and told them any of his bad plans. They wouldn't have said, "Oh, I didn't realize he wanted to raise tariffs. Guess I'll vote Kamala." They would have said, "Yes, and I'm voting for him." Even if it was against their best interest, even if they didn't even really agree with it. And while, yes, I do enjoy the schadenfreude of Trump voters getting their rights or benefits or jobs taken away and going, "Hey, wait a minute." I'm not convinced they wouldn't vote for him again if they had to do it all over. People aren't frothing at the mouth to find out the details of the Republican spending bill and how bad it is. That is not the thing that's going to help them decide who to vote for next. We're frothing at the mouth about watching 2-year-olds get deported, which we'll get to, about watching men receive no due process and get shipped to a foreign gulag, about watching our friends who work in government and education and nonprofits live a daily roller coaster of stress and fear for their jobs and livelihoods. The budget deal is consequential, but that is not what speaks to voters. We're out here living on vibes, and the vibes are bad. Most people don't need facts hurled at them. They want to feel that their politicians see them, listen to them, give a about them, and are willing to stand up for them. One of my favorite journalists writing today is 𝗬𝗪𝗡𝗡, and he recently wrote about how we should allow politicians to lean into their ambition because the framers of the Constitution who founded this country understood that to decide to be a politician includes a certain amount of inescapable ambition. And in a perfect world, that ambition to be elected would incite would-be politicians to act, to do something that they think the people will like. Now, that has of course been bastardized because the people with ambition and also $1 billion are the ones who really matter. But the point still stands that if these Democrats want to be reelected, they need to do the things necessary to get our votes, which is why I'm happy about David Hogg's bid to primary Democratic incumbents who aren't living up to this moment, which I talked about on Friday. Don't get mad about it. Get to work. Earn our votes. Do I want Cory Booker to be president? No, I don't really like the guy, and a lot of this feels very performative for a future presidential run. But let the man's presidential ambitions motivate him to continue to speak out and to act up, and may his colleagues do the same. Because the time was 100+ days ago to start doing every tactic in the book to try to slow these assholes down. The next best time is right now. And the budget talks this week are a great time to get started. And I don't mean, as Chuck Schumer promised, by telling us over and over that their proposals are bad. It's by telling us why yours are better and then doing everything you can to drag out the process when they don't agree to your proposals. Politicians are petulant assholes literally all of the time, except for when it really counts. So please be the petulant, petty assholes we all know you can be, but do it at the right time for us, for the love of God. As details emerge from these ongoing budget discussions over the next week, we know the media will be watching, but we also know they'll spin the narrative depending on their bias. We saw this earlier in this month when the House passed Trump's budget proposal. For example, I saw this headline from the Chicago Sun-Times that says, Trump's budget plan leaves nothing but tax cut crumbs to working class. Using the Ground News browser extension, it's helpful to see that this news source has a left-leaning bias, which I think is evidenced in the framing of this issue. And I really love this extension because it provides context, and I can see how other sources are framing the story by clicking on full coverage. On the Ground News website, you can see that there are 339 sources covering this topic. Among them, left-leaning Alternet uses the headline, "Math is just not mathing. Republicans face big challenges after Easter break," while far-right The Daily Wire frames it as, "Trump scores big, beautiful victory with House budget vote." These are very different takes on the same story, with the right focusing on the big, beautiful bill and the left focusing on how its details would hurt everyday Americans. And it's a clear example of how consuming news from only one perspective can limit your understanding of a situation and how it's being interpreted. This is where Ground News comes in and why I've been using them for over a year. Today's partner, Ground News, is an app and website that offers tools to help you critically analyze the news you read, providing context to understand the full picture. By using the Ground News Vantage subscription, I can also see the blind spot feed, where I can see stories disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. For example, only one right-leaning news source is covering the headline, "Rubio reiterates no U.S. action on Trump's Canada annexation idea." Interesting. I feel better equipped to make sense of what's happening in the world without being influenced by just one perspective. I'm always really impressed with Ground News and genuinely think that they're a great resource. If you want to stay informed on U.S. politics and more, scan my QR code or click the link in the description or go to ground.news/Leeja to get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use, which comes to about $5 per month. Ground News is subscriber funded, so they don't rely on ads that could introduce bias. Subscribing supports my channel and an independent team working to keep the media transparent. Thanks, Ground News. Okay, bad news time. Last week, 3 children under the age of 10, one with stage 4 cancer, who are U.S. citizens, were allegedly deported along with their mothers from Louisiana with no due process, no opportunity to speak with lawyers, and despite objections and court petitions from their U.S.-born family members. The 2 mothers involved in the case were reporting for a routine immigration check-in when ICE apprehended them and their children. The 2-year-old child in one case was put in detention with her mother, who is pregnant, and they were both barred from speaking to lawyers or to their family members before being put on a plane for Honduras, where now government lawyers are saying, oops, we can't actually get a hold of them because they've been released into Honduras, so nothing we can do. Hours after the 2-year-old and her mother were removed, a Trump-appointed judge ruled that there was reason to believe the 2-year-old was deported without any meaningful due process and against the wishes of her U.S.-born father, who had filed a petition to transfer legal custody to a U.S. relative, but was not given a chance to be heard before the girl was deported along with her mother. According to the Washington Post, quote, "Under previous administrations, some American children of deported immigrants have joined their parents in their nations of origin. But by law, those children left the U.S. only after after a lengthy process that allowed them to make their own departure preparations, meaning this is not normal. The other children were a 4-year-old with cancer and his 7-year-old sister and their mother, who were deported despite the wishes of the mother and the family members and without the child's cancer medications or meaningful access to communicate with his doctors about his ongoing care. Both mothers and their children were apprehended, removed to an immigration facility 3 hours away, and then quickly put on planes out of the country before lawyers even had a chance to speak with the families or file challenges in court that they were actively putting together. And despite the lawyers for both families confirming that they were barred from speaking to their clients or their children, and despite a judge ordering a hearing for May 16th to determine whether the 2-year-old was removed without due process, the Trump administration has doubled down. Both Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Trump's border czar Tom Homan have made appearances and stated that the children were not deported. Their mothers chose to take the children with them, but they're citizens, so it's fine. They could just come back at any time. It's easy. And because the children are U.S. citizens, they weren't deported. It was their mothers who were deported, according to Tom Homan, and those moms were definitely given due process, or as Tom Homan put it, that female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by an immigration judge after those hearings. He also said, and I'm paraphrasing, that if a female made the decision to come here illegally and then have a child, that's that female's problem. The female got due process and chose to take the kids with her, and that was the female's choice, not the government's choice. Homan also said those children weren't deported because to be deported means that they would have needed to have been ordered to leave by an immigration judge, and that didn't happen. But as an immigration attorney and law professor told the Washington Post, quote, "Who paid for the ticket? It is clear that the U.S. government paid for this ticket. That means these children were deported. Whether they had due process or not, whether ICE appropriately followed the rules or not, these children were deported." So by Homan's very definition, if he's arguing they weren't deported because the only definition that exists of deported is that a judge had to order them to leave, does that mean he agrees that they didn't get due process? No judge ordered this or even reviewed it, and yet the government facilitated their removal from the country. Interesting. But according to Tom Homan, if the kid is a U.S. citizen, then they just can't be deported. It's just the government coercing the mother and paying for the ticket, but it's not deportation. Marco Rubio also claimed it was the mothers who made this decision to bring their children with them back to Honduras. Lawyers for the families disagree, saying that these children and their mothers were held in detention and agreed to take their children under duress. The government lawyers point to a handwritten note in Spanish, allegedly written by the mother of the 2-year-old, which I didn't get a chance to look at, but apparently it said, "I will take my child with me to Honduras." And to the government, that is proof that she wanted to do this, despite the fact that it was written under duress and she was given no opportunity to speak to her attorney. And the statement, "I will take my child with me to Honduras," does not express a statement of desire or consent, but Lord knows these government lawyers probably struggle with the definition of consent. Given the government's willingness to lie in open court, to force immigrants to sign documents in languages they cannot read, and more, there is very little faith that they wouldn't also force a woman to write a note indicating consent to be deported along with her 2-year-old child who is a citizen. This was not the mothers electing to go on a fun vacation to Honduras and bring the kids. They were literally in detention, being threatened with deportation, given zero time to discuss with family members or lawyers before being quickly forced on a plane with their kids and sent to Honduras. And lawyers for the mother of the 4-year-old with cancer and his 7-year-old sister who were deported say that the mother was not given a choice about whether the children were going to go with her, despite what the Trump regime is claiming. And the fact that Rubio and Homan are doubling down on the narrative that it is the mother's fault is very disturbing. These are undocumented women and they're literal children. The government knows that they are vulnerable, and they are then taking these vulnerable people and separating them from the people in their life who have power, their family members who are U.S. citizens, their lawyers, and moving quickly enough to not get caught. That seems to be the main tactic. Just move quickly enough to not get caught and then claim it was legal all along, and even if it wasn't, there's simply nothing that can be done about it now to right that wrong. A 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer. If his stupid, dumb female mom didn't want him to get deported without his cancer medication, she shouldn't have come here illegally and birthed him. It is a way to discredit immigrants, but it is also a way to amplify the regime's call for the end to constitutionally protected birthright citizenship by spewing disinformation meant to make it look like these evil brown females are scheming, coming in here, breaking laws, and taking advantage of this birthright citizenship loophole to have anchor babies. And now they have to rightfully live with the consequences excuses of us denying them access to attorneys' due process or adequate time to suss out the custody and citizenship issues present in their ongoing cases. But it's these females' fault for sure. These cases are ongoing. A hearing is set for May 16th for the 2-year-old who was removed without any process. But this is an important escalation because it shows that this administration is willing to violate the due process rights of U.S. citizens born in this country and then deport them so long as they are vulnerable enough. Today, it's a 4-year-old with cancer getting swept up along with his undocumented mother, but I think we'd be remiss to assume it will stop there. The Trump regime is making it clear that they are very willing to lie and hide facts from the courts and the public, and they're betting they'll get away with it because of the incredibly vulnerable status of the people they are targeting, because they can spin it as the fault of the conniving illegal females who made them. So what group might be next to get caught up in the dragnet and blamed for their own problems? Time will tell. Moving on, let's talk about guns. Let's just talk about guns. I saw this clip from a recent NBC News report from Lincoln Heights, Ohio.
Members of the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch program.
It's a duty. Okay, let's go.
The duty, protecting their neighborhood, the majority black village of Lincoln Heights, Ohio.
Ain't nobody scared of you.
After neo-Nazis held a rally here last month, carrying rifles, waving swastikas, and hurling racial slurs.
Come on.
But residents here say they can't afford to wait. Every day, the Safety and Watch group escorts children to school and patrols the streets.
An armed neighborhood watch group formed in a historically black community in response to KKK activity and a neo-Nazi rally that was met with little to no resistance from the local police. This goes hand in hand with another report I saw on some unexpected gun reform advocates on the right. Specifically, Attorney General Pam Bondi served as AG in Florida back in 2017, and after the Parkland school shooting, she banned gun sales to people under 21 and enacted red flag laws that allowed law enforcement to confiscate guns from people deemed a threat to themselves or others. Because of this, the gun lobby actually fought against Pam Bondi's confirmation as U.S. Attorney General this year. But then, just this month, Pam Bondi created a Second Amendment task force, saying in a statement, quote, "The prior administration placed an undue burden on gun owners and vendors by targeting law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment rights. The Department of Justice's new Second Amendment task force will combine department-wide policy and litigation resources to advance President Trump's pro-gun agenda and protect gun owners from overreach." Other moves this month to walk back gun control initiatives created by the Biden administration indicate that the gun lobby's fear of Pam Bondi was overblown. And for now, the Second Amendment, as interpreted by conservatives, is alive and well. And that hasn't stopped conspiracy peddlers on my TikTok For You page from positing that the Trump administration may ramp up gun control laws now that they're attempting an authoritarian takeover because an armed populace is harder to control. They point to Hitler, saying he increased gun control laws when he took power in order to be able to better control the population and wage war. And as much as I am here to bring you the news and cover important breaking news topics, I am also not interested in adding to the noise and to the fodder for your anxiety. And my friends, I'm actually here to dispel the myth that seems to be circulating on social media that somehow the right is going to do an about face on gun control and start trying to take away our Second Amendment rights in order to better control us. Turns out, as with most things, it's not that black and white. First, let's talk about gun culture in America. Up until the 21st century, the courts generally agreed that the Second Amendment was mainly there to allow militias to arm themselves to prevent a tyrannical government. But after decades of pressure from the gun lobby, changing the narrative in this country, by the early 2000s, the Supreme Court came around and said, actually, no, the Second Amendment is also meant to provide for guns in order for individual personal protection and self-defense, despite over 200 years of precedent indicating it was mainly just meant for armed militias to protect the republic. And this shift in court interpretation mirrors the shift in cultural perception of the purpose of guns away from hunting and recreation and towards individual self-preservation, self-defense. That being said, the stereotype gun owners, white, rural, conservative men, does not paint a complete picture. And what that armed neighborhood watch group in Lincoln Heights, Ohio is doing continues a long tradition of people of color, especially black people, turning to guns for self-preservation in the face of a government that has always been tyrannical against them. Frederick Douglass advised black people to, quote, keep a good revolver to protect themselves from slave catchers. Despite the peaceful protests of the 1960s, there were many groups of black civil rights advocates who promoted gun ownership for protection. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic and the George Floyd riots, there was a surge in gun ownership, especially among liberals and people of color. The liberal gun owners subreddit has over 250,000 members. And while we don't have the data to back it up yet, reports are that more and more people on the left have chosen to arm themselves in the wake of the re-election of Donald Trump. So while black communities have had to arm themselves for self-preservation for literal centuries, the cultural shift towards gun ownership as self-defense has reached the mainstream, with lots of white liberals opting to own guns. I'm not interested. I think they're scary. But even I have considered whether it might be a good idea to at least take a class about how to use one, given the fact that I live in a country chock fucking full of them. Okay, so that's a part of the narrative that I think gets lost. Gun ownership is widespread, not exclusive to specific groups of people, and has a long history as a tool of black resistance. However, that does not mean that the right in this country and with this culture is going to come in and try to regulate guns now that the libs have them too. Which brings us to the Hitler argument. I'm no historian, but I can read, and looking at the conflicting historical narratives indicates that the story is not so simple as Hitler took away their guns and that made it easier to gain authoritarian power. In fact, that narrative has been used and exploited for decades by the likes of the NRA and other pro-gun factions as a means to justify having zero regulations around gun ownership in this country. First, they make you register, then they take them away, just like Hitler did. That's the trope. And it's been repeated so frequently that it's reached mainstream consciousness and now is being repeated on my For You page by people claiming Trump is now coming for our guns. The problem is that that is, of course, not the full picture. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles placed strict gun ownership rules on the people of Germany as punishment for what they did during that war. The Weimar Republic, a liberal government that oversaw a resurgence of art and gay culture in Germany, also instituted gun control measures, including a 1928 law requiring the registration of all guns. And that law was actually passed in reaction to the growing unrest caused by Nazi militias on the streets of Germany as an attempt to tamper down that unrest, which is being caused by Nazis. In 1938, after Hitler took power, he did pass a law restricting Jewish people from having access to firearms. However, the rest of the law deregulated gun ownership for everyone who wasn't one of the targeted minorities. It lowered the age a person could own guns from 20 to 18. It exempted many groups from even needing any permit and extended permits from 1 to 3 years. As one historian told the Associated Press back in 2013, quote, "To suggest that the targeting of Jews in any of the gun regulations or any of the other regulations is somehow tied to Nazis' view of guns is entirely misleading, because the Nazis believed in a greater deregulation of firearms. Firearms were viewed, for the good German, were something to which they had rights." And there's debate about whether, had the Jews been armed, they would have been able to put up a resistance, with some arguing that they were just a small percentage of the population and so spread out and marginalized that gun ownership would not have saved them, and others pointing to an armed uprising in a Warsaw ghetto as proof that if only they had had more guns. I think this is really not a worthwhile debate, because frankly, it's pretty insensitive. And also, there's literally no way to know. In 1930s Germany is not the same as 2020's United States. Plus, we have a militarized police force and a military armed to the fucking gills. I don't think even the best armed civilian militia could do much today in America. But the reason I bring all of this up is because, first of all, when I see misinformation spreading, even if it's not meant to be malicious, I very much like to stomp it out by adding additional information so that we all have a bigger understanding of what's really going on. Because it can be really easy to see scary sounding things on social media and really latch onto them. There is no evidence of a large-scale scheme by the Trump regime to take away all our guns. But also, gun ownership, even in a country like the United States where guns are ubiquitous, is a divisive issue, and it comes with a lot of assumptions and stereotypes and is inherently political. Whether you're a Republican in Florida interested in exercising your stand your ground rights against your pizza delivery boy, or whether you're a black father in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, interested in protecting your community from the KKK. As people get more and more fearful for their safety in a country where the government either doesn't give a shit about you or is actively targeting you, unless you're in the 1%, in which case you can hire other people to stand around you with guns, it's inevitable that gun ownership will continue to be divisive and frankly more attractive for people across the political spectrum. And I also can't help but place this in the context of Luigi Mangioni's ongoing trials, the man accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO on the streets of Manhattan. He has been accused of being a domestic terrorist and has pleaded not guilty to a federal murder charge that carries the death penalty. Many people were appalled by his actions, but just as many, if not more, were so inspired that to Luigi someone has become a recognizable verb in online spaces. places. The right is perpetrating and legitimizing political violence against minorities, against poll workers, and more, but I'm seeing more and more people on the left who feel that guns, self-defense, and the type of violence allegedly perpetrated by Mangione are justified and necessary when your government is not willing to listen and is putting the interests of the wealthy 1% over the very lives of all of the rest of us. Now, listen, I'm probably going to get demonetized for how many times I've said gun already, but I am really curious about how you guys feel. Are you buying guns? Are you seeing armed militias in your area? I don't know. Maybe use the word buns instead of guns so your comment doesn't get automatically deleted. In some good news, I was heartened to see this fun, petty thing happening at law schools in response to these spineless law firms deciding to capitulate to Trump. I've talked about big law before on this show. Basically, they offer grotesquely huge salaries in exchange for your soul in an attempt to attract the best talent. And if you go to a prestigious law school like the Ivy League or other top 14 schools and do marginally well in your classes, you get a pick of the litter when it comes to big law firms. And law students are using the leverage they know they have to hit back at the law firms who have publicly signed a deal with the Orange Devil. Students at Georgetown Law created a spreadsheet titled Legal Industry Responses to Fascist Attacks Tracker, in which they have given over 800 firms one of 5 different designations: caved to administration, complying in advance, other negative action, stood up against administration's attacks, and no response. The spreadsheet was meant to allow classmates to make informed decisions about whether or not to join certain law firms, but it's gotten national attention, and recruiters at major firms are saying law students are reconsidering offers from major firms who have been given the caved designation. Some law firms are even calling the student organizers and asking to have their designation changed. One Georgetown law student told Forbes he turned down an interview with Skadden after the firm capitulated to Trump. Skadden also had a recruiting event canceled by students in the Georgetown Energy Law Group. The spreadsheet indicates that plaintiffs' attorneys, that is, the law firms that typically sue on behalf of individuals who have been wronged by really anyone, the government, their employers, their schools, etc. These are the type of lawyers usually suing the people being defended by these big law firms. Those plaintiffs' law firms are now offering new summer positions for students who otherwise would have worked for big law but are seeking an alternative. And this is important because it means that plaintiff-side law firms are potentially poaching top talent from big law before they sell their soul and get attached by golden handcuffs. Plus, it's petty, and I love it. Separately, last week, a group of more than 400 academic leaders from the American Association of Colleges and Universities, representing a broad swath of academia from the Ivy League to community colleges, signed a letter in protest of the government's assault on academia. Now, it's not an earth-shattering move, but it is a sign of solidarity and hopefully the first of many concerted actions by colleges to act in solidarity against the Trump administration after months of some schools capitulating to the regime to save face. And this comes after Harvard stood up to Trump and sued the administration for its efforts to interfere with the university. And this is why, when I spoke about the Harvard case last week, it made me feel so hopeful. Dominoes can fall both ways, and the more individuals and entities willing to stand up to the regime, the more inspired others will be to do the same. And it is a promising turnaround after 100 days of seeing so many large law firms and prestigious universities show zero spine and a complete inability to meet the moment and wield their power for good where most of us have none to wield. If you're interested in supporting my work, you can get ad-free, uncensored versions of these videos over on Patreon, where I just launched the Why America Co-Learning Lab at the beginning of this year. It's a learning community, having discussions and making connections, along with a monthly syllabus curated by me. All year, we'll be covering topics under the umbrella theme of Eat the Rich, building solidarity in the new Gilded Age. April's topic is all about uncovering why fascism festered in America. This is all hosted on Patreon, patreon.com/LeejaMiller. Thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Mark, Thomas Orff, Sarah Shelby, Art, David, R.H., Latranger Lucas, Joshua Cole, Thomas Johnson, and Tay. Your generosity makes this channel what it is, so thank you. And if you like this episode, you'll like the one from Friday about stories you may have missed that week, including the FBI arrest of a county judge in Wisconsin. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye!